the four of us? Oh, great.
That is not
So
true.
don't even try.
Do your best.
Got it.
So do you guys know Mrs. Beckman and Mrs. Davis in the Blue Jackets to Janet? They they're the founders along with Henry Brown of Mothers United Against Violence. And they do a lot of vigils, they do a lot of home visits, they come to their families to court. To do that and help them get hooked up to other resources. So I am a administrative right, but I work out of Hartford. Do you want us looking at you or what?
I'm staying at the
Happy. This is going to be our.
Look my shoes, Jonathan.
Perfect. Oh, I almost got it. One more. Smile. All right. Coming. Thank you. you know, hopefully, maybe different. That was a very hilly route over
That
there.
was so
So
weird though when I saw you in Cheshire. I was like, I'm not stalking you. I don't want you to think I am. But how you doing?
I'll kick this one off to you, and then I think that's our order. I'll keep this on the. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us today. My name is Chris Murphy. I have the honor of representing Connecticut alongside my great friend and colleagues, Dick Blumenthal, in the United States Senate. We are here joined by our strongest advocates for common sense anti-gun violence measures. You are going to hear from, thank you for being here, everyone. We are so proud of the anti-gun violence movement here in Connecticut that has really led the way in a transformation of political power in this country. As we stand here today in the spring of 2021, we can say for the first time in a long time that the anti-gun violence movement is stronger than the gun lobby. And we are so grateful to advocates here in Connecticut and all across the nation that allow us to make that claim. We're here today to talk about the path forward in Washington. Senator Blumenthal and I work hand in hand when it comes to trying to move forward measures that will lower the rate of gun violence in this country. And over the last year, we have had a stark reminder of how much work we still have to do. Last year, this country saw over 600 mass shootings. We define a mass shooting as when 4 or more people are shot at any one given time. 600 mass shootings in 2020. The year before, in 2019, we had just over 400 mass shootings. All across the country, there was a disturbing and horrific spike in gun violence throughout 2020. Not coincidental, there was a giant increase in handgun and rifle purchases all across the country. What we know is that every time 10 guns are transferred legally, there are probably 2 or 3 or 4 guns that are transferred illegally. So when you see this dramatic spike in gun sales in 2020, I guarantee you that it also came with a dramatic increase in the number of guns that were transferred illegally or the number of guns that were transferred without a background check. And so it's no secret, it's no mystery why we saw such an increase in gun violence last year. It had to do with the pandemic and the economic desperation that people were feeling and still are feeling, but it also had a lot to do with the fact that there were just a whole lot more guns out there in this country. So what do we do about it? Dick and I and the advocates with us today will talk about some of these measures, but we have a chance to pass the most significant anti-gun violence bill since the Brady bill and the assault weapons ban in the early 90s. We have gone out across the country and brought this issue to the voters, and the voters have responded. We now have a House of Representatives that has passed a universal background checks bill, that has voted to close the Charleston loophole. We have a president who is committed to taking on the gun lobby and signing into law measures that will address gun violence. And we have a Senate majority that is equally committed to expanding background checks, passing red flag laws, working on the interventions that we know will reduce gun violence. Now, we still have a sticky wicket in the Senate, which is the present requirement that you need 60 votes in order to pass any anti-gun violence measures. We can certainly talk about the potential for changing the rules of the Senate, but right now we have to operate under the assumption that we need Republican votes to get an anti-gun violence bill, a background checks bill passed. I've been on the phone all week with my Republican Senate colleagues, making the case, cajoling, asking my friends to keep an open mind. I and Dick are going to work every single day with Democrats and Republicans to try to find a bipartisan path forward. This is a 90% issue in the American public. I'm the author of the universal background checks proposal before the Senate right now. 90% of Americans think that every gun purchase should come with a background check. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to find 60 votes for a measure that expands background checks. But it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take not only work inside the Capitol, but outside as well, because we're going to need to convince these Republicans that if they choose to vote against 90% of their constituents who want universal background checks, then they're going to pay a price at the polls. So we have work to do, but I am committed to getting a strong bill expanding background checks passed through the Senate, come hell or high water. I'm committed to working with Senator Blumenthal on expanding emergency risk protection orders, closing the Charleston loophole, mandating the safe storage of weapons. We can go down the list of really critical, important interventions, but this is our moment. This is what we've worked for. We asked the American people to put in charge of the White House, the House, and the Senate leaders who are going to stand up to the gun lobby, and they have responded. The voters have done their work. And so now it's time for the Senate to do its work as well. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be working every single hour of every single day to try to come up with the necessary votes to pass anti-gun violence legislation, to pass an expansion of background checks in this country, so we never, ever, ever again see a summer like we did last year, with 600 mass shootings all across this nation. Just last night, we lost another life here in Hartford. Behind me are the mothers of gun violence victims, the fathers of gun violence victims who are still grieving. The epidemic is real, and it is present as we speak, and it is our responsibility, our moral obligation, to use the gift that we have been given by the voters, majorities in the House, Senate, the President of the White House who wants to move on gun violence and get something done. I'm just so glad that every day I get to do this work alongside somebody who's been fighting the gun lobby a lot longer than I have. That's my colleague, Senator Dick Blumenthal. Thank you.
Thank you to Chris for his leadership, and I would just second his point that we have worked together as a team, perhaps as no other senators from Connecticut have done as seamlessly and passionately for this cause. Together, we are a force multiplier. We are a force multiplier with these folks behind us. They are the ones who are turning the tide. The activists and advocates, the survivors, are the ones who are making this time different. In fact, this time feels different. The dawn of a new era, because we have unprecedented momentum, not only from two houses of Congress and a president committed to this cause, but the gun lobby is imploding. The NRA has declared bankruptcy. And we have the votes, bipartisan votes, among the American people. This cause is not partisan among the American people. It's partisan only in the United States Congress. That's where the gridlock, the dysfunction is. And that's where we're going to overcome these obstacles. Now, America awoke last Tuesday to another stunning, shocking, savage massacre. This one in Boulder. Just a week after Atlanta. The shooter in Atlanta, without a firearm, was just a racist and misogynist. But with that gun, he became a monster, a mass shooter. The killer in Boulder, without that firearm, was a deeply troubled man going into a grocery store. But with a firearm, he became a mass killer. Someone who's on the verge of suicide will shoot himself when he might have sought help. Someone who is a domestic abuser will shoot an intimate partner. The rate of death is 5 times as likely. Guns make other problems fatal and irreversible. Fatal and irreversible. And we can save lives. We are working hard. We're on the phones. We're going to be talking face-to-face to our colleagues, and we're changing minds. I think we're on the cusp of major progress. But we need the activism and advocacy of folks, the American people, like the ones with us today. The people from Connecticut know these stories. And it isn't just the mass killings. It's downtown Hartford, the drive-by shootings, the killings of young people, senseless, preventable, in our streets, our neighborhoods. None is immune. And I will be bringing those voices and faces to Washington, D.C. in a series of hearings that I have begun. As chairman of the Subcommittee on the Constitution, I will be having a series of hearings, bringing Connecticut voices and faces to the United States Senate, victims, advocates, including some behind me, because they know firsthand how tragically transformative gun violence can be. Now, Chris Murphy and I have been working on universal background checks. I've been focusing on the loophole in the law named after Charleston, where a killer was able to purchase a gun because the 72-hour waiting period elapsed without a background check. That loophole enables ineligible, illegal people to buy guns just because the background check isn't complete in 72 hours. As part of the universal background check legislation, we need to close that loophole, and I've authored that legislation. But I've gone beyond that bill because we need nationally, Ethan's Law providing for safe storage. We need to make sure that young people and their families are not in danger of him or her going to a neighbor's house and playing with a gun that is unsafely stored. That is a tragedy that tears our hearts and leaves a hole there that can never be repaired. We need to make sure that when someone says, as the shooter in Parkland did, I'm going to kill people at a school, that he is separated from his gun, that a court orders that he be separated from that gun. An emergency risk warrant like we have here in Connecticut can save lives as it would have done in Parkland. And we need to make sure that guns lacking serial numbers, ghost guns, that are assembled in people's homes, are banned. Ghost guns must be banned, just as we've done here in the state of Connecticut, because they kill people and they can't be followed. Those crime guns cannot be stopped. Now, we know that Connecticut has some of the strongest gun laws in the country. And people in Connecticut are probably saying, why does it matter to us? We already have the strongest guns laws in the nation. What difference does it make to Connecticut? Well, the answer is guns have no respect for state boundaries. There is an iron pipeline that brings crime guns from South Carolina and other states in the South right to the streets of Hartford, the streets of Stamford, the streets of all of our communities, all around Connecticut. Guns have no respect for state boundaries, and they kill no matter where they are brought from. They kill with equal vengeance and effectiveness. So we need national laws that will protect Connecticut. And just two last points. There are executive orders that can be issued right now by this administration. I challenge the president, and I've talked to many of his staff, to issue those executive orders, whether on ghost guns or strengthening background checks or other areas where they can make a difference, because every single step counts. There's no panacea. There's no single measure that will solve this problem. We need a comprehensive approach. There's no single solution. It all ought to be our goal. And for my Republican colleagues who are unwilling to listen, who defy the 90% of the American people who want common sense steps to stop gun violence, I say you're going to be held accountable. We're not just taking names. We're going to be taking those names to the American people, and we are going to do again at the polls what activists have done in the last two elections. We are going to elect representatives in your place. If you fail in your responsibility, you'll be held accountable. Yes. There's no idle threat here. We're going to hold you responsible. No matter where you're from or who you represent, you should know your constituents are going to hold you accountable. Because there have been too many losses, too many lives taken. They didn't give their lives. Those lives were taken from them. And the trauma, the ongoing trauma of young people who see these shootings, who experience the grief and the trauma of that violence, will bear that experience with them for the rest of their lives. We need to save lives and save the futures for Connecticut and for our nation, and we are determined to do it. We can do it. We will do it. This Congress must do it, or we will replace the folks who fail to listen and fail to join us on the right side of history. Thank you, and I now have the pleasure of introducing someone who has been an incredible champion and crusader with courage and grace and strength beyond words, Nicole Hockley.
Hello, my name's Nicole Hockley, and first of all, I have to say a huge thank you from me and from everyone at Sandy Hook Promise to Senators Murphy and Blumenthal. They have been relentless in their pursuit of common sense gun safety laws. I had the sad honor of meeting them a little over 8 years ago in the firehouse after the Sandy Hook tragedy, which took the life, and actually I'm going to use Senator Blumenthal's words. His life wasn't taken, he was murdered in his first grade classroom, and that never had to be. There are so many people dying every single day in our country as a result of gun violence, of preventable gun violence. There's over 300 people that are killed or injured every day by a gun. The numbers are increasing. You heard Senator Murphy talk about the rise in gun sales last year. You heard him also talk about the rise in mass shootings last year. We are on a trajectory in this country where talking about Sandy Hook or Parkland or Boulder or Atlanta, these are going to be, the list is getting too long. Soon it's going to be easier to list the name of the cities that haven't been touched by gun violence than the ones that have been. It's everywhere. No one is immune, and common sense laws like background checks, I mean, I am having an incredible sense of deja vu. I've been fighting for this for 8 years. It's still the same conversation, and the inaction is killing people everywhere, every day. We have a path forward now, and it still boggles my mind that we have to find ways to sway senators to vote on this, to try to get to 60 votes. This isn't a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. This is an American issue, and it is something that 90% or 97%, depending on which poll you look at, people want it. Senators do need to be held accountable. Their constituents voted them in. They need to vote the right way. This is about saving lives. It's too late for me. It's too late for so many families that are standing here today. It's too late for so many families across our country. But we can take action now and prevent future tragedies. So thank you for your time today. Thank you again for all of the support. And please, can we just get this done? You don't want your family to be on this step next time. Thank you.
Deborah Davis? Where's Deborah? Deborah? We might have to work a little fast here because
I know, it's getting ready
my
to
weather
rain.
app says rain,
Yes.
so
Yes.
we'll expedite things here.
Okay. Deborah Davis from Mothers United Against Violence. And so we're here because we want to make sure that everyone knows, from the urban centers, from the inner cities all across the country, and everywhere else that individuals live, we are supporting this. Because we know that we lose a child almost every day in the cities. We lose the child maybe because of jealousy, maybe because of their sneakers, maybe because of a girlfriend. But for us, we need to make certain that individuals that have access to guns do not have access, to bring them into our community. So those background checks and everything that we do with legislation is so important, because we are surviving mothers and grandmothers, sisters and brothers, nieces and nephews, and their generations. So our work started in 2003, and we've been out here for the longest time advocating equity in justice, equity in education, equity in healthcare, every area that you can think of. But this area of gun violence is happening every day to us. And I do not want our senators to forget. I do not want them to forget our towns and our cities and our homes and our mothers that are still grieving and grandmothers that are still grieving. This is a generational curse, and it's not even an epidemic. It's an emergency. This is a national emergency. And so we want to make certain that we stand behind and stand with our folks that are fighting this fight. And it has always been a movement for us. So not to forget the fact that lives, innocent lives, individuals that are not doing anything wrong and just could be pretty much casually coming on their front porch. We've lost young people to senseless things. And I don't want everybody to think one thing, and that's what happens to us. You put it in a box, and that's it. It's not in a box. These are children of mothers and fathers that have wonderful lives ahead of them and had hopes and dreams and aspirations. They could be our doctors and our lawyers. They could be our judges. They could be our educators. I don't want them forgotten. I don't want people to let it go on deaf ear. So don't forget us, senators, at the level in the urban cities. Don't forget us. We're standing with you. We've always stood with you, and we'll stay with you. And you just let us know what we have to do, and we will be right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Well said. Jeremy?
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Stein, Executive Director of Connecticut Against Gun Violence. I want to first thank Senators Murphy and Blumenthal for doing this and for their unwavering support and fight against gun violence. And it's not just because of what happened in Atlanta, and it's not just because of what happened in Boulder, Colorado. They've been doing this for a very long time. As you heard from Nicole Hockley, we've all been doing this for far too long. And we've heard recently about the stories about yet another person with easy access to an AR-15 who killed more people than should be allowed in any normal society. No one should have access to these types of weapons. No one should be able to go in and buy these types of weapons as easily as they can just buy a pack of cigarettes. But we're not even talking about that. We're talking about something very simple like universal background checks. Something so commonplace, it just makes sense. And what we're not hearing about, although we hear all these stories, we're also not hearing about what Deb Davis just talked about James Mclean, the 58-year-old man who was found dead on a sidewalk in Bridgeport. Or Alessia Mesquita, the 28-year-old woman who was shot dead by her partner the same week in New Haven, leaving behind a 1-year-old child. Or the 15-year-old teen boy shot in Connecticut. Or we can just look last night, right here in Hartford. Amarius Flores, a 26-year-old, was shot and killed last night from multiple gunshot wounds, died in the hospital. And then last night, just blocks from here, a woman was shot near Trinity College. And that's just the homicides. Double that number, and now we're talking about gun suicides. About 20,000 people every year die from gun suicides, including my own uncle, David Stein. Now is the time to demand stronger gun laws. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now. We have to demand it. Demand it like our life depends on it, because it does. We don't want to see one more person on these steps. And I am grateful that I have my brothers and sisters here from all the organizations: Sandy Hook Promise, Moms Demand Action, Mothers United Against Violence, Hartford Communities of Care, Compass Peace Builders, Hang Time, all the people that help do this work every day so that we can prevent one more gun death. Last week, I got my COVID shot. I got my vaccine like millions of Americans. We possess the cure now to solve this. Imagine if we had a solution that we didn't use. Imagine if we waited and watched while 100 people every day die without implementing the cure over decades. Imagine if we failed to act. Well, we have the solution. We've done it in Connecticut. We're going to do it in Congress. Universal background checks, expansion of ERPO laws, extreme risk protection laws, Ethan's law, sealing up the Charleston loophole, all of these common sense gun laws. We cannot accept it any longer. Let's hear it. We are going to do this today, and we're not going to stop until this gets passed in Congress. Who's with me?
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. Janet, we'll keep going here. We'll try to make it through the rain. Janet?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Senators Blumenthal and Murphy, for allowing me to speak this afternoon. This is very dear to my heart, as I am a gun violence survivor. You see, 3,084 days ago, my only child, Shane, was snatched from me by gun violence. And I have been on this mission to reduce or end gun violence in our Black and brown communities throughout Connecticut ever since. While strong gun laws are important, they alone are not the solution to community-level gun violence. We need multifaceted solutions. We need programs such as Compass Peace Builders of Hartford, Raya SAP, and Street Safe in Bridgeport, and Connecticut intervention programs of New Haven, Hartford Communities That Care. These programs have proven track records of reducing gun violence, and when we invest in underserved communities, we do save lives. Everyone seems to scramble when there's a mass shooting, but the truth is more lives are lost every year in our black and brown communities to street-level gun violence than in any mass shootings. And we need to do something about that now, today. When is enough going to really be enough? Let's stop talking about it and do something about it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Well done. Michael.
I'm Mike Song. I'm Ethan Song's father, who Ethan's law is based upon for safe gun storage. Welcome, everybody. Can we just have a really rousing cheer for all the effort that's being put out here to change our world? Let's do it. Thank you all for helping us pass Ethan's law in Connecticut. I would sacrifice every possession I have, everything I will ever have or could ever have, to spend 1 minute with my son Ethan. 1 minute to tell him how I feel. Climb any mountain, cross any desert for 60 seconds with my son. Now, in that minute, I'd probably have to move fast. If I got that minute, that priceless minute. And I'd have to tell him how much joy he brought to my life, just like all the people here who have lost somebody, in the urban communities especially, that get not enough attention, and all across the country. That's right, absolutely it's right. And I would say this to Ethan: remember lacrosse, remember practices, remember Sandy Island camp, remember fishing and sushi and finding the best lobster roll in New England? Remember flying to Los Angeles to see your grandmother or seeing the Anne Frank house? Remember hiking and biking and skiing? I remember it all, every day. And then I'd say, Ethan, I'm so sorry I couldn't take that bullet for you. Every parent here who's lost a child would leap in front of that bullet. I'd jump in front of it. I'd give up everything to have you back. I've had my time. You deserve to have your time. And I'll never forget our time together, dad and son, pals, buddies, friends to the end, the bitter end. And then I'd hug him and say, we love you, Ethan, forever. I used to tell him that every time he left for school. I'd hug him, say, I love you. And the day he died, I missed that because I had a meeting. It was early. I had to get to this meeting, so I got cheated out of that last hug. The right to defend our families is clearly granted in our Bill of Rights. Reason and God agree. Every parent knows that this right to protect your family, supersedes any other law or amendment. The right to life, liberty, and happiness is paramount. And these folks and we have been cheated out of that by the fact that we don't have better gun safety laws. So I would give everything I have to spend 1 minute for my son. Can we just ask gun owners to sacrifice a little bit too? Maybe they have to wait one more day to get their gun. Seems like a very small sacrifice compared to the one that these folks here have made. I wanted to thank our amazing senators who are simply incredible advocates for us. And just remember this: the NRA is running around like Chicken Little saying the sky is falling if you plug a few loopholes and make sure the people getting the guns aren't terrorists or people that are going to shoot up your school or shoot up your urban community. That seems crazy. There's 400 million guns in the country. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real. Thank you so much for all you are doing. Everyone here, I love you. We love you. And would you mind saying with me, we love you, Ethan, one time? And that means we love every one of your children. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We love you, Ethan. Thank you. I want to thank my wife, Kristen, as well, for being an amazing supporter, Kristen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike. Ken Lawler. Hey, Jen.
Hello. Oh, Ethan is here, I'm going to put Emily right next to him. Oh, goodness. I'll just hold this for a moment. My name is Jen Lawler. This is a photo of my daughter, Emily. Emily's 25 years old, and in December 2018, her life was ended by a domestic dating partner that she'd known for 3 weeks. I want to echo everything that's been said here today rather than take a ton of time. I want to explain to you why universal background checks will impact every single human being. It is nothing but inflammatory garbage that situations like what happened to my daughter happened because somebody obtained a weapon illegally because he did not. I want to tell you that he legally purchased a firearm in minutes in a pawn shop in the state of Ohio, and he then brought it to our very, very safe state when it comes to policy and procedure. Much like our senators have worked on, we truly are only as safe as our nearest state. And I beg people to understand that it is not just about one issue. We have to universally come together on this and just begin to work as a team. The many asks, like something for a background check, they're not going to harm anyone. If anything, they're going to keep everyone safe, and the responsible gun owners that want their rights to have those guns, they're going to be able to keep them. So that's what I'm asking for today, just to give that some thought, and of course to continue to support everything that was already said here today. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Kate? Batting cleanup.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Roshman, and I'm the leader of the Connecticut chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Thank you, Senators Blumenthal and Murphy, for inviting us to join you today and for your zealous advocacy on the issue of gun violence prevention. It's been 25 years since our national leaders passed a federal gun safety law. 25 years of senseless mass shootings, 25 years of needless tragedies that continue to victimize our cities, 25 years of heartbreak, and 25 years of tireless activism, determination, and hope. There's no question that universal background checks enjoy nearly universal support. 90% of Americans want expanded background checks. There's only one question. Why doesn't 60% of the Senate pledge their support for a law providing protections demanded by over 90% of their constituents? Connecticut is fortunate to be represented by Senators Blumenthal and Murphy. They're long-standing and passionate leaders on gun violence prevention, and they're not alone. Last fall, millions of Moms Demand Action supporters and other gun violence prevention activists across the country worked to elect a gun sense majority in both houses of Congress and a president committed to gun safety legislation. And yet here we are, still fighting the gun lobby's stranglehold on our democracy. Now is the time for bold leadership. More than 100 Americans die every day from gun violence, and we can't afford to wait for the next election cycle. We need more than thoughts and prayers to prevent gun violence. We need action, and we won't rest until we get it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I didn't have it on the list, so go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Manuela Barker. I'm here to talk about how it feels to be a young adult living in a country where it seems like protecting gun rights is more important than protecting its citizens. Part of growing up in America is believing that mass shootings and other gun-related incidents are normal. It's not until you're a bit older that you understand that the reality is far from that. As a child, it was difficult to comprehend why we had drills on how to behave if someone walked into our school with a gun. It was alarming as a kid to think the next person I see walking through that hallway could possibly be a shooter and not my mom picking me up from school. The nightmare became very real during those drills and started to make me think, shouldn't school be the place I'm supposed to feel the safest outside of my home? Well, those nightmares followed me through college and were a key driver to my decision to study human rights and political science. I had to look for answers to why the largest democracy in the world was also the one with the most gun-related deaths. Unfortunately, the reasons are unclear. But what was clear was how terrified I was of being in a crowded lecture hall or being in the student union with my friends. And so the nightmare continued. We need to stop having such heated debates over life-saving legislation. It is now time to act on them. It is not acceptable that we put innocent lives at risk just because some prefer not to go through a few more steps to owning a gun. I can understand why some citizens decide to own a firearm, and no one is suggesting that the right is taken away from you. But why not have stricter background checks before obtaining one, or just simply locking your guns away? If we not start acting now and pass common sense gun legislation, we will keep losing innocent American lives. It still baffles me that the love for guns in my country takes precedence over lives. I want to stop having these nightmares and want to feel the normalcy and safety that every American and I deserve. So thank you, Senator Blumenthal and Murphy, for actually caring about our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Well done. Once again, thank you to our tremendous advocates here in Connecticut. Things are changing. This is a moment. This is an opportunity. We'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has from the press. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you very much.
Good. You know Nicole Heath?
Yes.
Oh, of course. Yeah. They're coming up.
Amy Cohen, both board members.
Yeah, we're going to be up here and try to see all the grandparents are vaccinated, so we'll see them, bits and pieces, not everybody together. But,
10 days from my second dose.
You are?
I'm about to see my mom for the first time in a year.